السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين، والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله وخليله وأمينه على وحيه نبينا وإمامنا وسيدنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has enabled us to, first of all, be amongst the Muslims, the ones who proclaim La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, the one that is the only thing that will save us on the Day of Judgment, is the belief in the Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the messenger and the final prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us all the bounties, whether it be from our health, our wealth, our families, whatever it may be in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all glory and gratitude belong to Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us everything. And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us almost witness another month of Ramadan. Ramadan is just around the corner in maybe two or 3 weeks time. And this month is such a special month. It comes once a year. The Sahaba, they used to take it as a guest that is coming in. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, he mentions in his book Lata'if al-Ma'arif that the Sahaba, they used to 6 months in advance of Ramadan, they used to start preparing for Ramadan. And 6 months after Ramadan used to finish, they used to make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the Ramadan. And so this is the Sahaba, how much they were looking forward to this month of Ramadan. And the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in it is greater than all the other months when it comes to just the amount of blessings totality in this month. And we see many of the things that we do throughout the year. This is one month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the shayateen, and He makes it easy for people to implement the deen. And if somebody's, has spent his whole year doing fisq, doing sins, not obeying the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is one month that he can turn back. And this is one month, that's why the famous hadith with the Prophet ﷺ is taking the 3 steps, and he says, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. And the Sahaba asked him, Ya Rasulullah, why did you did something that we've never seen you do before? He said, when I was taking the steps, Jibreel came to me. One of the things he said is, may Allah's curse be on the one who finds the month of Ramadan, but he does not get forgiveness from it. And so Rasulullah, he said, Ameen. And so we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so easy in this month that the one who does not take benefit of it, then he is under the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why we see whenever we come across something, if we see we have an exam coming up, whatever it is, we start preparing months in advance. And this is what the Sahaba used to do. Ramadan is such a special, they were preparing 6 months before. Today, now we only have 2 or 3 weeks. They used to prepare mentally, spiritually, even money-wise, that how are we going to do this, how are we going to feed the poor. A lot of them used to give zakah in the month of Ramadan because of the virtues of it. And it's just not just about the a'mal. Of course, we're going to have the fasting, the salah, the qiyam al-layl, salat al-tarawih, and all these other things. But also it's about if somebody has broken relations throughout the year, he hasn't talked to his Muslim brother for such a period of time. This is the month to end all those, whatever you have, like the bughd, the thaqar, whatever you have, the enmity that you have towards your Muslim brother. This is the month to end all that. Because Rasulullah, he came to perfect the akhlaq, and Rasulullah praises his akhlaq. He says, Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun, ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika bi majnoon, wa inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnoon, wa innaka la ala khuluqin azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we see the akhlaq of Rasulullah many times throughout the seerah. In Badr al-Uhud, that the Sahaba, they see Rasulullah, he's taking the sleeve of his, the thobe he's wearing, and he's wiping his mouth where he's bleeding from. And the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, what are you doing? That he's collecting the blood in his arms. And he said, if one drop of this blood hits the ground, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy the Quraysh. And he said, the Sahaba at that time, they grew tired because Uhud, Khalid bin Walid, when he wasn't a Muslim, he came from around, and the Sahaba were on the back foot at that time. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, let the blood flow and let the punishment come. So Rasulullah said, I have not been sent here to curse. And then they saw him a little while later. He was sitting by the Mount of Uhud, and he said, Allahumma hadi qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guide my people, for they do not know. And this month of Ramadan is also when Rasulullah he conquered Fath al-Makkah, when he did Fath al-Makkah, when he entered the city of Makkah, and he freed it from the shirk that was going on. And when he entered the city of Mecca, he said, well, the people were fearing all the people that had been enemies of Rasulullah at that time. So the enemies of Rasulullah before he migrated to Medina, they're usually about three categories. One are the really evil ones, like Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give them hidayah. One were the medium ones. And some of them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them hidayah, some of them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give them hidayah. And then there was one that was very easygoing, that they didn't like what Rasulullah was doing because they had they loved their tradition, they loved what their forefathers used to do, but they didn't openly preach against them. So example would be like Umar al-Khattab, Khalid al-Walid, and others like that who weren't serious enemies of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them hidayah. Some were in the middle, like Walid bin Mughira, who was the father of Khalid bin Walid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed so many verses about him in the Quran. Like Abasa wa Tawalla, when the blind man comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's with Walid bin Mughira at that time. And when the blind man comes to Rasulullah, he does not pay attention to the blind man, and he pays attention to Walid. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he corrects that mistake, and he says that, why are you paying heed to someone who's not going to listen to you? And Walid, once Rasulullah was praying in front of the Kaaba, and Walid, he was passing by, and he sees Rasulullah reciting Surah Ghafir, Hamim, تنزيل كتاب من الله العزيز العليم, غافر الذنب وقابل التوب شديد العقاب للطول لا إله إلا الله. So just the words, even if you don't understand the Arabic language, you can see the power of these words. And this is Rasulullah reciting these. And Walid, he listens to it and it affects him. And so when he comes out, the people say, we see Muhammad, he's what do you think of him? What is your opinion of him? Do you think he's majnoon? Do you think he's crazy? So he says, have you ever seen him do anything that resembles somebody that's majnoon? So he said, no. He said, oh, okay, maybe he may be a soothsayer, a kahin. And they said, have you seen him do any of these things? And they said, no, we've never seen him do anything like that. And then they said, oh, maybe he's a sha'ir, he's a poet. And he said, have you seen, he's unlettered, have you seen him ever write anything? And they said, no, we haven't seen this. So they said, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say he is a prophet? That you're denying everything that all the claims we're bringing about him, you're denying him. So he said, no, let me think about it. And then he said, come back to me tomorrow. So he goes overnight, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records everything he does. So his name, one of the names of Walid bin Mughira is Wahid, because the Kiswa of the Kaaba, every year, all of the tribes of the Quraysh, they used to come together and they used to pay for the Kiswa. And Walid was so rich that one year he would sponsor it himself. It would alternate. One year Walid does it himself, the next year all the tribes combined together to pay for it. And so he was called Wahid. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Muddathir, ذَرْنِي وَمَنْ خَلَقْتُ وَحِيدًا. He mentions him by name. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on and keeps mentioning that ذَرْنِي وَمَنْ خَلَقْتُ وَحِيدًا وَجَعَلْتُ لَهُ مَالًا مَمْدُودًا وَبَنِينَ شُهُودًا وَمَهَّدتُ لَهُ تَمْهِيدًا ثُمَّ يَطْمَعُ أَنْ أَزِيدَ كَلَّا إِنَّهُ كَانَ لِآيَاتِنَا عَنِيدًا سأرحقه صعودا إنه فكر وقدر فقدر كيف قدر ثم نظر ثم عبس وبصر ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر. He paced back and forth. ثم عبس وبصر, and he scowled and frowned. This is him thinking at his home. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recorded everything that he did in his home. ثم عبس وبصر ثم أدبر واستكبر, and he turned back in arrogance. فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر. And then when he came out the next morning, he said, this is nothing but a magic of old. فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر إن هذا إلا قول البشر. This is just a saying of a person. So he denied it, and eventually, and he was the one that made the famous statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recorded in the Quran, when he said, وَلَوْلَا نَزَّلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. And why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is Surah Zukhruf, he says that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this, if he wanted to give us such a religion, why did he give it to Muhammad and not قَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ, رَجُلٍ مِنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ, the two great men from the two tribes. One is obviously Ta'if, the tribe of Ta'if, and one is Quraysh, and I am the leader of the Quraysh. So why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't choose us to give this message, why he chose Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so so Walid, even though he had this enmity towards Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was not someone that went out like Abu Jahl or Abu Lahab. And so when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam entered Mecca, Walid had already died at that point. So all the people, they were fearing that, we have tortured Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for this long, how he's going to treat us. And he said that لا تضرب عليكم اليوم يغفر الله لكم, that everything that has happened, there is no harm upon you. Man dakhala bayta Abi Sufyan, whoever enters the house of Abu Sufyan, he is safe. And this is also just showing the characteristics of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Sufyan, going after him, 23 sana, from 23 years, he's going after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, pursuing him, battling him, going out to Abu Sufyan even went to Heracles, the Roman Empire, to preach against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah when he enters Mecca, he says, whoever entered the house of Abu Sufyan, he is safe. And these are so many lessons that we can get out from these stories, that how Rasulullah entered Mecca. The people that, sometimes nowadays people put on the image that Rasulullah was like this, but the characteristics of Rasulullah is what attracted the people to Islam. And after Fath al-Makkah, they went to Hunayn and Ta'if, and when they conquered that, Rasulullah has the booty, and then when he's handing out the booty, he gives it to Safwan ibn Umayyah and gives him a 2-month grace period. He says, you have 2 months to accept Islam, and he gives him 100 camels. And then from the time of tribe of Ghatafan, he gives it to Uwais ibn Habis, and he gives him 100 camels. And from the tribe of Banu Tamim, he gives it to Aqra ibn Habis, another 100 camels. And then to Muawiyah, who is the son of Abu Sufyan, who goes on to found the Umayyad dynasty, he gives him a large treasure. And then from the booty, he also gives a large treasure to Harith ibn Hisham, who is the full brother of Abu Jahl. So the Ansar, they're seeing Rasulullah, he's giving out all the money that in their eyes they've earned. And he's giving to all these new Muslims that have just entered Islam, that haven't actually fought in the battle in Fath al-Makkah. So the Ansar, they grew a little disgruntled. And so some of the youngsters, they started saying, how Rasulullah has ignored us. When the time for war comes, they call for us, but when the time comes for giving booty, they ignore us. And some of them said that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive Rasulullah for he has ignored us, and he's handing out all the things we have earned to the people, and our swords are still wet with their blood. Our swords are still dripping with their blood. And so Sa'ad ibn Ubadah, who was an Ansari, he went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, there's people that are saying these kind of things. The Ansar feel this way, that they've made so much sacrifice, they've come here and they have gotten nothing from the war booty. So Rasulullah, he asked, Wa ant, and what's your opinion? And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I am of my people. So it shows the iman of Sa'ad too, because he went to Rasulullah and he just gave him the hint, but he feels the same way, but he's suppressing the feeling. Because even if we were at that time, we wouldn't have done any different, because when it comes to money, when it comes to, everybody has desires, and suddenly you've lost your family members in battle, you've gone on, shedding your blood, and suddenly you see that everything you've earned, Rasulullah is giving it to others. So Rasulullah, he calls all the Ansar to a tent, and in the tent, all the Ansar come. There's no Muhajir, nobody else, no Abu Bakr, no Umar, no Khalid, none of them, only the Ansar are there. And Rasulullah, he says, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ansar, he gives one of the most powerful khutbah of the seerah, specific to the Ansar, and talking about the great attributes that they have. And he says, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ansar, that, O people of Ansar, that when I found you, that you were misguided, and وَهَدَاكُمُ اللَّهُ بِي, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you through me. And he says that, O Ansar, if I was not a muhajir, if I did not make a hijrah, I would have been from you. وَلَوْلَا الْحِجْرَةِ لَكُنْتُ مْرَأً مِنَ الْأَنصَارِ, that if I didn't make the hijrah, if I wasn't a muhajir, I cannot control where I was born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me born in Mecca, and I had to do the hijrah, but if I wasn't born there, I would have been from the Ansar. And he says, وَلَوْ سَلَكَ النَّاسُ وَادِيًا وَشِعْبًا, if all of mankind goes through one mountain pass and one path, and the Ansar go to another mountain pass, another path, I will leave mankind and I will go with the Ansar and follow their path. And he says that Al-Ansar, the example he gives is Al-Ansaru shi'arun wal-nasu dithar, that the Ansar are like the inside of the clothing that touches the body part, and the rest of mankind is like the outer garment that doesn't touch the body part and facing outside. And finally, he says a powerful statement that all of the people in the tent, they start crying, and the Rawi of this, Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Asim, he says that every single person had their beards wet, flowing with tears, when the Rasulullah said that, I have given all these camels, these goats and wealth to all these people who are leaving, but how do you feel? تَذْهَبُونَ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ إِلَىٰ رِحَالِكُمْ, that Rasulullah is coming with you back home, back to your homes. And so the Ansar started crying. So these are all just lessons that we can take from the akhlaq of Rasulullah, that in such a situation that people are disgruntled, but Rasulullah he's praising the Ansar at that time. If somebody else in that part, they'd be like, I brought you iman, I've done this, they start listening to Ihsan. Rasulullah is the complete opposite. He's listing the praise of the Ansar. What is their status? He says that the wealth I have given them, let them take in this world, because I fear for them and their desires. I don't fear for you, because the wealth Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given in your heart is much greater than the wealth they have in this world. And he says, I will meet you in the Hawd al-Kawthar, in front of the Kawthar, and I will repay you for what I have not given you here. So, there's so many lessons that we can attain from just the akhlaq of Rasulullah. People came to Islam due to this. Salahuddin Ayyubi, when he conquered the Quds, there's Christians, the Crusaders have written many books about how he treated the Christians, how he kept the churches. And this is the basis of Islam. This is because nowadays we see that the Muslims, where they lack, many of them may be praying, many of them may be doing the fasting, the Hajj, but the akhlaq is nowhere to be found. Akhlaq is almost half of the deen, where if people don't have akhlaq, they're backbiting, they're slandering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them on a day of judgment. People will come with loads of tahajjud, loads of fasting. They'll come, they'll be proud on that day. They'll think that, we're pretty much in, our book of deeds is filled with good deeds. And then they come and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the book of deeds and it's empty. And they'll think it's a mistake. They'll say, Allah, what is this? I did this, and there's nothing here. He said you slandered. He came and took this. You backbit this person. He came and took this. You lied against this person. He came and took this reward. And a point will come where all his good deeds will finish, and the bad deeds of the other persons will be put upon him. This is what the things the Muslims lack nowadays is akhlaq. One of the shuyukh who died 2001, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, and he said when he died that before he died, he said the biggest problem I used to think with this ummah right now, and he only died in 2001, which is about 20 years ago. He said the biggest problem I used to think about this ummah is the aqidah, but now I realize it's not the aqidah, but it's the akhlaq. The ummah lacks akhlaq. They don't give the huquq to their wives. They don't give the huquq to their parents, the huquq they deserve. They don't give the huquq they deserve to their friends and everybody, because Islam, it came to teach us everything, how to live our life. And it's not just, of course we pray and fast, but people get impressed by how Islam spread to Malaysia and Indonesia. Nobody went and fought wars there, but organically through traders from Northern Africa, from Egypt, Morocco, people that traveled over to Malaysia and Indonesia, they accepted Islam. Just seeing the deal of the Muslims, just how when a Muslim would loan money to who was a kafir at that time, or loan money to a kafir, he wouldn't ask money on top of that, wouldn't ask the riba on top of it. He would give it loan out of his goodwill because he wants to earn ajr in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because riba is haram in Islam. So with the dealings that the Muslims had, that's how the people became impressed and they came towards Islam. But nowadays, that's one of the things that the Muslims lack, where the akhlaq is thrown out the window. Unfortunately, we have two sides of the coin, where some people will go onto the liberal side and they they don't practice at all the deen. And some, they learn a little knowledge and come so fervently into the deen that they start seeing everybody as dal, mudil, mubtadi', and they start making takfir, seeing major sins. And Islam is always Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Islam is always a balance, where you don't go too far to the right, too far to the left. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an example, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. The Rasul is always balanced, and he's the example that we need to follow and stick to this path. And unfortunately, as the time keeps going further and further, the end times are pretty much near. We're pretty much towards the end of time, because the Prophet ﷺ says in a hadith narrated in Bukhari, Sahal ibn Sa'ad, he says, بُعِثْتُ وَالسَّاعَةَ كَهَاتَيْنِ, and he lifted his two fingers, his wusta and his sababa, and he put together, and he said, the hour and my coming are like this. And he put his middle finger and his pointer finger together. And that's 1,450 years ago. So if the day of judgment and the time of Rasulullah is 1,450 years ago, and he said they're like this, imagine nowadays, especially we're seeing the deterioration of the society when it comes to morality, where people are accepting morals that are against Islam. Because just to give an example, that unfortunately we have Muslims that there may be a Muslim that may be going out and doing zina. Maybe he may be doing sins that are like maybe even homosexuality, which is a major sin in Islam. But he's still a Muslim. But there are other Muslims who don't do the action, but they justify it. Justifying it is kufr. That takes you out of the fold of Islam. So unfortunately, we have this situation where Muslims, they don't acquire the proper ilm. This comes for all of us. It's not specifically for anybody. This is just a general thing. That this is why the month of Ramadan is coming in 15 days. This is just to revive our iman, revive whatever happened in this year. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. We turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We try to not only do our fasting, do our prayers, do our qiyam al-layl, tarawih, also try and improve our dealings with others. Try and act as a mercy to all the Muslims, not only Muslims but also non-Muslims, so they see our actions and they accept Islam. Rasulullah was sent as a mercy to mankind. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you except as a mercy for mankind, and we need to follow in his footsteps, because the path he has left for us is the path that will lead us to success and lead us to Jannah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this month of Ramadan, something that we can take benefit out of, make it a means that we earn forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make it a means that we enter al-Jannah al-Firdaus al-A'la. Allahumma ameen. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Those who came late, they can offer salah, inshallah.
Just before we start the Arabic.
Okay.
After the Salah?
Already gone.
Oh, fine.
Ready?
Good.
Oh, what's up? I didn't open it. I have 30 minutes. 30. Okay. I see it. The last one. Which one? The last one?
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له لا مشير له لا وزير له لا صاحب له. ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. رواه البخاري ومسلم في صحيحه عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال مثل يذكر ربه والذي لا يذكر ربه مثل الحي والميت. رواه مسلم في صحيحه عن أبو موسى الأشعري رضي الله عنه قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يسير في طريق مكة فمر على جبل يقال له جمدان. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم سيروا هذا جمدان سبق المفردون. قالوا وما المفردون؟ قال صلى الله عليه وسلم الذاكرون الله كثيرا والذاكرات. رواه إمام أحمد والترمذي وابن ماجه عن عبد الله بن بصر رضي الله عنهم أن رجلا قال يا رسول الله إن شرائع الإسلام قد كثرت عليه أخبرني بشيء أتشبث به. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يزال لسانك رطبا من ذكر الله أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام استغفر الله لي ولكم لسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في دين الله عمر وأصدقهم حياء عثمان وقضاهم علي وفاطمة سيدة النساء أهل الجنة والحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة وخالد سيف من سيوف الله وحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسوله. اللهم اغفر العباس من ولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداء الدين. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا عسيرا إلا يسرته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا مبتلا إلا عافيته ولا ضالا إلا هديته ولا مجاهدا في سبيلك إلا نصرته ولا داعيا إلى هداك إلا وفقته ولا عدوا إلا خذلته ولا عقيما إلا رزقته ولا عزبا إلا زوجته. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي أعدكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استووا واعتدلوا. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. حميم تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون وقالوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقر ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون. قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فاستقيموا إليه واستغفروه وويل للمشركين الذين لا يؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.